So, local consumer review. So, Bright Local did a thing of what consumers, so we always get these reviews of what we think, but what they did was they reached out to the people who actually are buying stuff. Because most reviews surveys come from other companies. I call a business owner, hey, where'd your leads come from? So what they did was they said, okay, well, let's go to the consumer. They do this every year, usually. 98% of all people read reviews online.
Which is not surprising, right? When you go to a new restaurant or maybe a hotel, what's the first thing that you do if you don't know? You go and you read the reviews, right? So that's what Google is. I mean, you have to basically, and you guys, I mean, some people like Nathan, I mean, he ran a contest and everything else, and you know, he's got close to 1,000 reviews, which is amazing. But depending on your industry, you definitely want to always work on your reviews, and you want to work on these way more than you want to work on Zillow, okay, or anything else as far as that. Now, okay, currently, because, you know, Google's taking over everything. But in real estate, it's not, you know, people don't get thousands of reviews like restaurants in hotels as much, but just make sure you're working on reviews all the time.
Yeah, and the big thing, we're going to have some other graphs come up, but basically 80% of the people are using it once a week. And we do it when we're here too. Like we went to restaurants, we did the same thing. So what this shows where Google is an 18% jump. So last year, most people went, it was 63% to Google, which was still the best, but now it's 81%. So you're seeing that Google reviews are where the majority of the people are heading.
Yeah, a lot of the time, you know, people think, okay, my industry, okay, if it's law, looking for a lawyer, you know, is it law sites? But no, it's Google. You know, realtors going to realtor.com or Zillow or whatever other, you know, your website, your realtor website. No, it's Google. So Google is where you really need to focus on everything that you're doing in your business as far as, you know, people are going to the sites in real estate. Absolutely.
Yeah, so you go back to it, so you have Yelp. Yelp, if you notice, has gone up a little bit, but look what's going down. So back to this, look at Facebook. Fewer people are going to their Facebook to review it, so that's kind of where the shift of your Google business profile and managing it is where it's going.
Well, and even Facebook, you know, Facebook, people don't go to Facebook for business. That's not where you go for business, okay? I mean, Marketplace or something like that, you know, running ads and things. But when people are going, they're scrolling through. They're not looking for ads and things like that.
Yeah. So 99% consumers use the business. We got that. 78% of the consumers use internet to find information about local businesses. That's going up. So what this is saying is, even if you get a referral, that customer is going and looking at you. So when somebody contacts us and says, oh, my Google profile is not performing, well, a couple things. Well, how do you know it's not performing? And where are you going and getting the information? Because the consumers are saying, they're going and looking at you, they're reading your reviews, they're checking the updates. Is it updated? So if I go to a place, so we were talking about this, and if I go to a business and I pulled it up, it hadn't been updated since 2020. Like I went on there and clicked it, 2020. The last review was whatever it was, 18 months ago.
Even SEO companies and stuff like that, they're not updating their Google, so it's kind of like, it's just interesting that, you know, if you're a company that you don't have and you aren't focused on your Google. And the thing is if you go into your analytics, you can see how people are searching you, and Mark's going to talk about that in a little while. So what they're doing is they're going to your billboards or listening to your radio, and they're Googling you, and then you're coming up and they're looking at your presence. They're looking at what does your Google look like, okay? Even when you're getting referrals, if you get a referral, you know, usually you aren't the only person they're going to, right? They get a referral from you, but they're also getting a referral either from other people, or maybe they have a realtor in the community or anything else. So again, what are they doing? They're going online and they're Googling you, and what's coming up is your Google, and that's what they're looking at. So we just can't stress, and it's so funny because we talk about this all the time, right? And Todd and Craig want us to talk about Google all the time. But the reason why is when we go and we look at different people, we've talked about this probably a couple dozen times, And still, you know, at least 50% of the members are not doing it, guys. And so it's just so important that you guys realize how important it is to do this.
So a couple things. People are not necessarily searching every day as often as they used to, but they are searching multiple times a week. So they're going to find a business, but they just don't do it every day. At least once a week though, as you can see, the 21, 35, 22, like it's still really high. Like that's 80% of people at least once a week are any type of business they're using. Go ahead.
So more consumers use Google to evaluate local businesses than ever
Yes.
before. In 2021, 80% did. And then, like you were saying, 63%.
We did that slide. We had the slide that showed that. So it just kind of explains it in terms of getting where your Google business profile, as we've said many times, is your storefront. So if you're not cleaning it, if you're not updating it,
You're not feeding it.
the consumer is seeing the difference in terms of what it is. And that was one of the big things we took from the study is maybe you're not generating the lead, but are you converting it? Because that's what it's being used for, is the Google business profile based on the consumer use, is that's what's converting them to use you, use the plumber down the street, use or go eat at the restaurant.
So a lot of people will come to us and they'll say, oh, well, you know, I'm not getting the calls, or I don't, you know, and we'll ask them, you know, how many calls are you getting from Google, or how much business are you getting from Google? And people don't know, guys. And then we'll go in and we'll look, you know, at our clients and stuff, and they're getting tons of calls, but they have no idea what's happening to them, or who's answering them, or how they're getting, what the system and the process and everything. And then once you actually figure that out, and you're actually figuring out, you know, we like to use CallRail, okay, for the Google My Business and LSA ads, a different number, so that you know when it's coming in and you can track it, where it's coming from. And once people start to realize it, they get the business, okay? You just have to be updating, changing, feeding, adding, everything else. But just make sure you know how many calls are you getting. Do you know how many calls you're getting per month? And even if it's 5.
Like that particular person, we used it as an example first, where I called in and the customer and the person says, who's that? So we went back and we looked at his. Now he just has it tracked through Google, so he doesn't have CallRail, so he probably has even more. He'd had 24 calls in the last 28 days. And I said, how many of these calls did you get? And it was just dead silence. I said, well, how many did they tell you? Like, somebody had to have told you. He didn't know anything about it. And I'm like, well, how much business are you losing? And he goes, well, the average sales price is $1.5 million. And I'm like,
we're converting out of every 3 to 4 Google are going to closings. So if you're getting calls, so imagine if you're getting, let's say you're getting 8 calls, you should close 2. If you're missing 28, how many, in your conversion ratios, if you're missing 28, how many closings should that be? 7, let's say? And you have 1.5 million is your average price. How much money are you missing right there? So the conversion ratios you guys gotta figure out just like you would anything else, okay? Because these are easy conversions.